Okay, it says that we are recording.
Okay, Amber, I think you can start letting folks in.
Oh, okay, wait a sec. Should I start at 2 or 2:05? I have 2:05 on the thing. I'll start at 2:05.
Okay, then I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to let everybody in from the waiting room.
Okay. Okay, everyone, I'm going to get started. Welcome. Good afternoon and welcome to If All Arkansas Read the Same Book, a conversation with Michele Richardson, where we will discuss her latest best-selling novel, The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. I'm Karen O'Connell, coordinator of the Arkansas Center for the Book at the Arkansas State Library. The If All Arkansas Read the Same Book program occurs annually to encourage the enjoyment of reading and discussing one book together across the state. The program is partially funded by the Institute for Museum and Library Services. In addition, I would like to thank the Arkansas Department of Education and all of the staff members at the Arkansas State Library who helped to make this program possible. Prior to the pandemic, we had planned a speaking tour with Michele Richardson, and here I would like to thank our event venue partners, Courtney McNeil and staff at Hempstead County Library in Hope, Philip Shackelford and staff at the South Arkansas Community College Library, as well as Michael O'Connell and staff of the Union County Public Library System in El Dorado, Kathleen Ashmore and staff at Cabot Public Library, as well as Deborah Moore and all the staff at Lonoke County Library System, and Brad Moy, Mark Christ, and staff members of the Central Arkansas Library System. We wish we could be in person with everyone today. Additional partners brought to all of you ebook copies of The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek in overdrive, so we could all read and enjoy the novel, even when physical copies were checked out or unavailable because of the pandemic. Thank you to the Arkansas Digital Library Consortium, the Central Arkansas Library System, Hempstead County Library, and Library to Go, Northwest Arkansas. New York Times, Los Angeles Times, and USA Today best-selling author Michele Richardson has written 4 works of historical fiction and a best-selling memoir, The Unbreakable Child. The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek has earned a 2019 Library Reads Best Book, a 2019 Forbes Best Historical Novel, an Oprah's Buzziest Books pick, and a Women's National Book Association Great Group Reads selection. The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek was inspired by the real-life Blue people of Kentucky and the Works Progress Administration's Pack Horse Library Initiative during the Great Depression. Kim Michele Richardson lives with her family in Kentucky and is also the founder of the Shy Rabbit Residency for Writers and Artists. We had the opportunity to ask Kim Michele a number of questions that we had collected from our community, and we will debut that conversation today. At 2:30, we will open the chat for questions to ask Kim Michele live today, and library development staff here at the State Library will moderate the questions. We expect to begin answering questions at approximately 2:45, and we will try to get to as many questions as possible in our allotted time. Lastly, we'll be recording today's program. Please help reserve bandwidth by keeping your video feeds turned off as well as your audio muted. Now I would like to hand the virtual microphone over to our new State Librarian of Arkansas, Jennifer Chilcote.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you to everyone who worked on this program. If we were all in the same room together today, I would be able to look you in the eye and thank you warmly for being here with us today. But my welcome is no less warm because we aren't all in the same room. I certainly wish we could be together. The virtual environment is not the ideal one for truly connecting with a favorite author. And I know Kim Michele is disappointed about that too. And yet, in our current environment, it seems somehow fitting that we should be jumping through virtual hoops in our service to our love for books and libraries. This is what the Pack Horse librarians, like our heroine and so many others, did in the remote reaches of the Appalachian Mountains in eastern Kentucky. If not for a love of books and libraries and a belief in their power to change lives, how else would you begin to explain 200 women and a few of the sturdier menfolk on horses, mules, or on foot, traveling routes that typically covered 100 to 120 miles every week, carrying packs that held about 100 books each? Because of course, while The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek is a work of fiction, it is historically accurate in its portrayal of the dangers and hardships that these librarians faced. The circumstances of these librarians and the communities they served are not just of an intellectual or professional interest to me. They are of personal interest. The photo I'm holding up is of my great-great-grandfather and grandmother. This is John Alexander Murphy and Sarah Ann Stevens Murphy. He served in the Union Army when he was very young, and later on when he married, he and his wife had 13 children whom they raised in McCreary County, Kentucky, one of the counties that was served by the Pack Horse Librarian Project. Census records indicate that he could read and write. She could read, but she could not write. They were quite elderly when the Pack Horse Librarian program started, and I'll probably never know whether they were served by any of the Pack Horse librarians. But just as I feel a kinship with these ancestors, I feel a kinship with the Pack Horse librarians too. As a librarian, they too are my ancestors. Librarians around our state are currently demonstrating that same love of books and the people they serve, albeit under less grueling circumstances. They're rolling out Wi-Fi hotspots to places in the library that are convenient, places beyond the library that are convenient to people in their communities who need internet access. They're donning masks and gloves and providing curbside pickup, expanding their ebook collections, and they're presenting fun and educational programs online for patrons young and old. And as they do reopen to the public, they're taking every precaution to be sure that their users and their staff remain safe. I want to thank Kim Michele Richardson for being with us today and for bringing us this beautiful homage and the inspiration that comes with it. Without further ado, please join the Arkansas State Library and the Arkansas Center for the Book for our interview with Kim Michele Richardson.
So, good afternoon, everyone. The Arkansas Center for the Book at the Arkansas State Library is excited to be here this afternoon with best-selling author Michele Richardson to talk about our If All Arkansas Read the Same Book selection this year, The Book Woman of Troublesome Creek. Welcome, Michele, and we're really excited and we're really happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Greetings from Kentucky.
Yay! The novel, The Book Woman of Troublesome Creek, takes place in 1936 during the Great Depression and focuses on the pack horse librarians in Kentucky as part of the Works Progress Administration. In addition, the main character, Cussy Mary Carter, has a congenital disease that makes her skin blue. And our questions today will delve into the background and the writing of the novel. And I thought maybe a good place to begin would be, what inspired you to write about both the blue-skinned people of Kentucky and the pack horse librarians?
Thank you. Well, all my novels are set in Kentucky, and my state is rich with history and unique things. And I try to bring unique things to all my books, you know. And with the pack horse librarians, they were but a blip in history, as well as the blue-skinned people. They're taught in schools, you know, for our biology classes and examples on genetics and so forth. But I wanted to lift them both up and honor them.
Right, right. Have you ever met any blue-skinned? Have you ever encountered any blue-skinned people in Kentucky? I know you live in Kentucky, and
yes, I've met several of them, and during my travels and so forth. So yes, as well as some of the ancestors of the pack horse librarians, the grandchildren. The one event I was with, a son was sitting in the front row. That was his mother, you know, in one of the pictures. So yes, I've met them both, and all of them are wonderful.
So it's part of the history of the novel. In your author's note, you talk about some of the research you did with the medical research, and I think that that really comes out a lot in the novel. A lot of our questions, I think, relate to the research process, and I thought that that might be a great place to go. So you're talking to a number of librarians here at the Arkansas State Library across the state of Arkansas, as well as a number of readers of the book. And as a librarian, I'm really interested in research and background research. And one of the things that I really loved about reading the novel was the actual books in the novel that the main character, Cussy Mary, delivers to the readers on her route. And I was wondering how you went about choosing the novels that you talked about, that people were reading.
Well, first of all, so much history went into this book, and you know, trying to make it as factual as possible. So I wanted to go, and I spent weeks, you know, searching for the right books. So I would have this character here, Henry. What does Henry want to read? Or this character, or this, you know. So I did started with doing research, magazines, from books, children's books, and I think I started in the 1800s, and then I went forward, you know.
Right.
And it was just, what if I were a librarian, what would I pick for this? What would this person want? And you all get to, you know, experience life with your patrons every day. But
right.
For me, I only spent 5 years with these people, but I just kept imagining what this one would like, what that one, what should I bring them, you know.
Right, right. And I think it's true to sort of think about, it's not just books that were published in the 1930s that people were reading. It's what were these sort of books that would always be in a sort of library setting. I think that Cussy Mary's Bag had books like Robinson Crusoe and things like that in it. There's a bit about Pearl Buck. I think that she won the Pulitzer in 1932. The Good Earth is in there. I think Pearl Buck won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and not a lot of women have won that. So it was kind of fun to sort of see that. One book that really struck me was Brave New World. And I read it again because I hadn't read it in a while. But it was fascinating how Cussy Mary, how she just talked about Brave New World. And I think a lot of that impressed me, but that what she focused on in that novel was what was interesting to her in the life that she lived. The scene may have been talking about how in Brave New World there was some sort of drug that sort of was disseminated to a bunch of people to keep them from being violent. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I finished this book, of course, 2 years ago, and that's one of the things I do like to always keep touching on in my novels is things like social injustice, women's issues, poverty, you know, because it's so relevant today and it's just prevalent, you know, and I don't think that part of history is going to go away for a long while, but, you know, when I'm picking these books and I'm thinking of these books and so forth, I am, you know, trying to give a particular book to each patron, you know, depending on the patron.
Right.
I think we actually had in this book, on my website, you can download the companion book to this, and there's 70 pages of things. But this was, I don't know if you could see it, but you probably can.
It was in Cussy Mary's Bag.
Yes, those were the books, you know, that I narrowed it down to and so forth.
That's really awesome.
That was the really fun research about it. You know, even getting to some of the books I didn't know about, you know.
One of my colleagues wanted to talk about the folk remedies that are in the novel. And we were imagining that these would have been passed down by generations. And how did you come across some of the folk remedies that you talk about in Bookwoman?
Well, of course, you know, Kentucky has a lot of superstitions and it's old land and so forth. But the thing where I would get my remedies is just listening to the elderly and the seniors and just listening to some of their stories over the years. And of course, those are priceless, you know, and you hear what this one was used for and that one was used for and so forth. So it wasn't anything really, you know, go look for the but just imagine the ones you've been told as a child and then the ones seniors can tell you and recall, well, I remember, you know.
It's kind of like weaving a quilt in a way that, and you must have a really great memory. Do you take when you have that inspiration, do you jot it down or do you it just sort of comes out?
Well, knock on some wood, I do have a good memory. I rarely forget anything, you know, that's important, that especially coming from people. I really listen more than I talk. I'm always listening, you know, and so if someone's coming to me with conversation, and I like to listen, I like to learn about their story. I particularly love learning, speaking with seniors, and like I said, the elderly. They just have so much wisdom, and so that's, you know, where you can learn a lot. Just listen. Sometimes listen.
So it's a good opportunity to bring some of that out when you're writing a book and writing historical fiction. and being able, I think, to create something that just feels so real, which this does for sure. Really. So for me, it was really easy for me to picture Cussy Mary creating scrapbooks. And I think that you talk a little bit about scrapbooks in your presentation. But scrapbooks seemed like to become really important to extend the lifespan for the books and magazines and resources that Cussy Mary would bring to the readers on her route. And I guess I just sort of picture her. I think there's a section in the novel where she's actually home. She's always working, and she's home, and she's creating a scrapbook, you know, with the readers on her route in her mind. And I was wondering if you ever came across any of these scrapbooks or the Pack Horse Librarian scrapbooks in your research.
Well, again, you can see pictures of them in the companion booklet. You can see photos of them. I've not come across one personally, but I think there's one up in FDR's museum. You know, but yeah, there's pictures of them, and they were simple notebooks, blank pages where they paste, you know, whatever the other big cities were throwing their way, they thought was trash. It became their treasure, and giving recipes and selling tips from the people, you know, and that's exactly what these Pack Horse librarians did.
Right. I think that scrapbooking has such a long history, and it's sort of started in the Renaissance, and it's keeping going with things like Facebook and Instagram and things like that, are just sort of ways virtually to sort of share information in that kind of a scrapbook kind of a way. But there's a lot of, I think, in another life, I was a preservation librarian, so sort of thinking about the challenges of these. But there's such wonderful parts of history, and to sort of see, there's a lot of cultural, historical elements in the novel that you bring out, and that comes out in such a relatable way that I really enjoyed a lot.
Thank you.
Thinking about things like that you might include in a scrapbook, things like images, photographs. We're wondering about maybe some of the photographs that you found in your research. And did that sort of help for inspiration? Or I have your book in hand, and the cover is just really compelling. And I was wondering if you might talk a little bit, share with us some insight in how the cover came about.
Well, with all authors, the cover, you don't have any control over it. It's in your contract. The control goes to the publisher as well as the title.
Right.
So, for instance, but you're asked opinions, but in the end, the reason because of this is because of marketing. They don't expect us to be marketers, you know. So this was the first cover chosen for it.
Okay.
And so occasionally a bookseller will come along, in this case Barnes and Noble, and they would with that strip, that blue.
The blue.
So then, of course, they came up with that. And then I love this cover from HarperCollins, Canada.
Oh, wow.
And that I personally do not like people on my cover at all.
Okay.
At all. And I want the reader to, you know, I really limit the physical traits. Of course, with Bookwoman, I couldn't. I had to say she's, you know, blue. But I never describe her physically in any other way, you know. And I do that with a lot of my people because they can get their own imagination going. But this was a literal metaphor, and I thought it was so beautiful and sad and haunting. And because you say, why is this woman being smeared? What has she done to cast this unfavorable gaze on the townsfolk? So So then when the U.S. publisher saw that, they came up with it. So, and
Oh,
they
I
decided
see.
that way. So that was made to be like a metaphor, literal, metaphor.
Right, right.
Not many people, but I knew immediately. And so I really thought that was a good direction. The book had like 4 different names. It was first called A Familiar Bluette.
Okay.
I had named it, and the agent said, that might sound too offbeat. Let's try another one. And we came up, she liked Kentucky Blue. And I said, we can't do that because the boss will kill me, Dad.
Right.
Basketball, and no. And so she, then we came up with the borrowing branch, and the publisher felt that the younger folks wouldn't know that they were called borrowing branches way back. So that they came up with the Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek.
It's a great, I remember it was about a year ago, and one of my colleagues was reading about it. I think it may have been just recently published, maybe for a month. And so I looked it up and I thought, oh, this is something I want to read. And I wrote a little sticky note and I put it on my computer, and I had it there for a couple of months. And when I was looking at adding books to our book club collection, that's something that we do here, I added the Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. And then when I asked our book clubs, the book clubs that the Arkansas State Library supports, the Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek was the most requested book from all of the book clubs around the state. And that was before we had really thought about approaching you and thinking about selecting this novel for our state read. So I already knew that everybody was excited and reading about it, and I think that the title is compelling. It's really interesting to hear. I love that, how the connection between that sort of swath of blue between those two images. That's really interesting. I think that's that would be a great article in itself.
Yeah,
So.
I knew it immediately when I saw it. It was just, like I said, both sad and haunting, but beautiful.
It is.
And so, because one thing I did say, and I'm really strong about this, I did not want a blue person on my cover.
Right.
Because the internet has made fake pictures of the blue people.
Right.
That are very offensive, and I did not want their pictures or any fake pictures in the book. So that was something I was going to die on a heel for, because that couldn't be, because most of the stuff that's out there is offensive.
Right.
So I just like, this was the perfect thing that they could do.
Right.
Is why is this woman being smeared? What has she done? And so forth.
But I think that the end product really sort of brings about kind of a feeling of the time period, and it does a great job with that. Holding books that aren't in the best condition, but are having lives as people encounter them, as Cassie Mary brings them to them. It's great. It's really visual. A lot of things in the novel are very visual in that way.
Okay.
So I was thinking next month, on August 18th, will mark 100 years since the 19th Amendment was ratified. And there are several strong and inspirational women in this novel. And we're wondering if you were drawn to writing about the Packhorse librarians, because so many women were involved.
Yes, well, not just that. It was just an unknown program. And the rest of the world did not know it. I think when I was wrapping the book up, finally the Smithsonian did an article on them.
Right.
But it was such an unknown, and I'd never seen them in novels and so forth. But that it was women driven, and they had done these things and built this program. you know, from scratch, you know, just $28 a month, no books, no mounts, no places to have your books, and turned it into a successful program and a bridge to education. And during Kentucky's most violent times, during the Full Mine Wars in 1935, it was just, you know, amazing. And doing it all too, kind of like we're doing things now, while they were fighting their own wars on pellagra, of course, poverty, smallpox, influenza, with nothing, you know. And it's just fascinating.
Right. I've actually had the opportunity to hear an interview with you when you talk about Cussy Mary's name and Junia's name. And I was wondering if you could talk about how you selected the names of the characters in your novel. Well, you know, thinking back to your list, I think that Charles Dickens is on your list, and he was so famous for selecting names that I always imagine it's difficult to choose the names for the people in novels. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. And on kind of a follow-on to it, are there any names and surnames in the novel that maybe still exist in Kentucky today? But primarily talking about the names.
Well, first of all, when I begin usually my names, I can look back through ancestors or so forth, and then I go to the death index and the birth certificates and so forth, and look at the regions of each county and so forth. Mm-hmm. But for Cussy and her family, when I was studying the northern part of France, looking for where they might have descended, particularly from this village in French, which would be Cussy, France, but of course, spelled Cussy, and of course it's going to come over here and become Cussy, it's not going to be named Cussy. So that's when I decided her name is going to be Cussy Mary, you know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then for Junia, I believe I was doing research on some biblical inclusions that were going to be included in here, and some of that. And the next thing I know, I'm down a rabbit hole with this 13th apostle that may or may not have happened. And I'm having so much fun with it. I'm like, that's the name of her mule, Junia, you know. So it became just a fun thing, you know. As I said, the research for me is just, I love research. It's, you can just pick little gems out of, you know, something you missed in history and just pick it up and use it.
Yeah, I think that kind of compels people to look for the region in France where Cussy's name came from, and thinking about those rabbit holes themselves, you know, to learn a little bit more. So I think that's one of those sort of the gifts that literature and novels just keep on giving.
Yes, yeah, you just find that one little thing, unique thing, and you can, because a lot of times I'll come across so many unique things. I will use that one day. I don't know when, but it goes on a little sticky note somewhere, and sticky note pile, and I pull it back out, and I'm like, there's where you need to be, you know.
Well, that's perfect. That really is. I think we just have a couple of more questions. One of them is about whether you have strong feelings or emotions for your characters, I guess, that might develop as you're writing them. And is there any character that might stand out more for you?
Well, I was with them 5 years, so it's a long time, you know, anywhere from 14 plus hours a day in some way, fashion, shape, or form, thinking about them and creating them and so forth. So I really love them all, but Angeline was a little dear to my heart, you know, and she's suffering and everything, and she's uneducated, but she's trying to do the best she can, you know, and take care of his husband and so forth. And she just didn't care. She wanted to be Cousin Mary's friend, and she loved her.
Right.
Lots of books and helped her to learn to read and write. So I think she was just a sweet character.
Right, right.
And,
She's one of my favorite characters.
Right, and I think it's, for me, it is easy, to write these characters sometimes because, you can grapple with it if you, especially me, have felt hunger and poverty in my life. I can relate to my characters really sometimes, many of them, the hunger, Will Henry, and so forth. So,
right,
yeah.
right. That was hard to read because I think that it's very visual. It's very evocative. It's very real when you're reading about her connections, about Cousin Mary's connections to her readers, to become friends on her route, and so hard to think about the times and hungry children. Very, very hard to read about, and always very hard. It's always, I think, good to keep things like that in our minds to help us be kind and think about people.
And we have so many hungry children in our country, but especially back then, they were literally dropping dead from hunger. It wasn't so much the influenza and smallpox killing them.
Right.
It was the hunger. And you just had whole families wiped out. And even up till 55 years ago, in 1964, Johnson came to Eastern Kentucky and declared his war on poverty, and not much has changed, there. So, anyway, so it's important to we bring these issues up, and because make people aware, maybe your neighbor is not eating what you think they should, or they can't feed themselves, this week, so, yeah.
Right. So, I guess for our final question, and you've spoken so much about important aspects of the novel that really resonate today. And what would you like for readers to get out of this story?
Well, I think if I've shown the reader how hate and fear and ignorance breeds toxicity into culture, that's an important thing. But the most important thing for me is if I drop seeds of kindness, empathy, and courage into this somewhat tumultuous and charged world we're now living in. And that's all I could ever hope for. I didn't know how important that was going to be 2 years ago when I finished this novel. But I can say now that that's what I hope to accomplish then a little bit. But when I see it resonating with readers all over the world, that means a lot to me.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. You had, for us here in Arkansas, about a month ago, wrote a really lovely piece. Yeah. And if you wouldn't mind reading it. Oh, and I do want to note the lovely pin on your lapel today as well. Is that? Yay! It's so lovely.
My husband got me that for Christmas.
Oh, what a great present.
To wear on tour to come see you all. Yeah. Okay, this is a little essay. I wrote one up for the bookstores as well as the librarians, Jewish people in Arkansas. And it's what I just feel, libraries and librarians are life-saving connections to a world that has become disconnected amid a global pandemic and unrest and despair. Especially today, we need these imperative lifelines, the selfless librarians who feed knowledge to our souls. Daily, I'm reminded of the indomitable spirit of my Kentucky sisters who work for the Pike Horse Library Project. in the 30s to 40s. Known as book women, these brave literacy pioneers of Appalachia rode mules and horses into the remote pockets of Kentucky to deliver books and reading material to the isolated folks who had none, along with a few very good bookmen too. They accomplished what many could never, battling everything from inclement weather, mistrust, treacherous landscapes, and extreme poverty, as well as fighting their own wars against rampant deadly diseases such as smallpox, influenza, and pellagra. Still, the fierce Kentucky bookwomen persevered and did so during Kentucky's most violent era, the bloody coal mine wars, when Kentucky men were fighting the rich coal companies and their hired thugs for better pay and safer working conditions. In a world where uncertainty, danger lurked on every part, these fierce pack horse librarians soldiered on in their fight for literacy, determined to deliver books to their patrons. They inspire me so much that I spent 5 years to bring them to you in the book Woman of Troublesome Creek, while also enduring my own suffering, illness, and hardship during my research. But I would do it all over again. These brave librarians are as well are modern day librarians are worth it. In the 1930s, the financial obstacles that the Kentucky Library Initiative faced were huge. Though the bookwoman and a few bookmen were paid $28, a mere $400 today a month, the pack horse librarians had to be resourceful. They were not given any supplies and were left to find books and reading materials on their own, along with obtaining a sturdy mount to make the deliveries to the isolated mountain folks. Today, I see the same grit and determination of the pack horse librarians reflected in many librarians around the country. They are the courageous bookwomen and bookmen dispensing hope and literacy in uncertain times, working tirelessly alone in vacant buildings or at curbside or from their homes to get books and reading materials into the hands and hearts of readers to foster strong literacy. Like the Pack Horse Library Project, libraries are tasked to operate in extreme and difficult times with few resources and little or no financial help from the government. We need to be there as these modern day literary centers fight for the future of their important community treasures, the very cornerstones of countless communities which support, lift up, and enrich our neighborhoods, all our peoples. So until we can gather again at our neighborhood libraries, and we will, we can be inspired and take solace and hope. Always there is hope where there are books, just as we are reminded of the hope from Cussy Mary, the strong-spirited pack horse librarian bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. We know that today's librarians are also soldiering on because they understand the importance of providing invaluable services and valuable resources and services to the community. They recognize that books can carry us anywhere, even to a brighter and bigger future.
Thank you so much. That's just really lovely. Okay, everyone, thank you. I'm going to start, I think, our live chat today with Kim Michele, who is here with us. Thank you, Kim Michele, for all of the time you spent with us these last few months getting this together and going through this interview process. And I think the chat has been open for a little while now. And it would be really wonderful to read some questions from our audience today from the chat. My colleagues in library development are here, Ruth Hyatt and Amber Gregory and Jennifer Wan and myself, and we will be reading you questions today.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I've got a courting candle here.
Oh,
And
yay.
so everybody can see how that works. and you just raise the taper up or lower it. And this is an old antique one. So that's how that kind of works. All right.
That's beautiful. Fantastic. Okay, I hope it will keep us on track. There are a lot of great questions. I've tried to shift them around into a sort of a sensical order. One of the first ones was, were there characters that you created that didn't quite make it into the book? All the ones we saw have such a rich backstory. Even if we didn't get to learn a lot about them, they were well-rounded, wonderful characters.
No, I wasn't giving up a single one of those. I had pretty much lived with them for 5 years, and I did not want to give them up. I mean, I've been blessed to talk with several editors, and one of them felt they might not be needed or someone here or there, but I wasn't giving a single one of them up. You know, I love them, so, and I love creating them.
They are fantastic characters.
If
I know
anything,
you're probably not prepared to pick up a
I
book.
was going to.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. If anything, I was going to kill off one of the characters, and that was going to be Jackson.
Oh no.
I know, but he made it. Don't. But I meant that because I was having such a rough time with that ending, you know.
Okay. All right. So, like I said, I don't think you were prepared to read, but there was a question about your favorite part of the book. Is there one particular part that you enjoyed writing or that you think back on?
I loved it all. I loved Miss Loretta and her wisdom, and that she gives on page 88. That we'll be lucky enough to have another author come in tomorrow and read that small passage. I don't know. It was just, like I said, 5 years of being and growing these characters and so forth. I really enjoyed it all. It was just I felt it was such an honor and privilege to write about these people from my state.
All right, wonderful. Speaking of people possibly from your state, would you share your reaction to making contact with Douglas, and please forgive me if I butcher his last name, Fugit, descendant of the Blue People and former librarian?
Yes. Before the book went out to the world, it went out to blurbers and librarians like yourself, and the publisher and we received a letter from Mr. Fugate, now in Oklahoma, and just praised it and gave it's such glowing, beautiful praise. And he too, was from there, and also had the gene disorder. And but when you have bad days or whatever, or somebody doesn't like your book or whatever, and they let you know, it just was something I said, I'm going to print this out and keep this forever, because it doesn't matter who else doesn't like it or who does. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to lift up these people, both my Pack Horse librarian and my blue skin people of Kentucky. So I was just, privileged. And so as well, getting to meet the Pack Horse librarians, descendants, their children, grandchildren was such an honor, as well as other blue skin people.
Wonderful. Did those descendants share some of the photos with you?
The Pack
Photos
Horse
in the book? We had a question of where they came from.
Oh, they came from our Kentucky State librarian, and she was just wonderful. Lisa Thompson, that helped us, and from day one got in there and got us all the pictures and answered any questions I might have, and so then we found out we could use them in the back of the book too, and we thought that was just going to be amazing, because the young librarians, to see that, see their sisters and brothers doing that, and just to have those historical photos was a blessing.
Okay. And as we close in on our finishing time, 2 questions. They would like to know what you're working on next, and we would also like to know what you're reading yourself.
Well, today I just finished a book that's unfortunately not going to come out till December, and it's I blurbed it. It's called The Arctic Fury by Greer McAllister, and it's set in the 1800s, 1850s, where women are sent to do an expedition up in the Arctic to find missing males that have gone missing, and it was just blew me away. One of the things I've been currently reading, this comes out in August, Every Bone of Prayer. It's a debut set in Appalachia, as well as this is a wonderful mystery. I got to be on a panel with her, They All Fall Down by Rachel Howes Hall. And if you're looking for a nonfiction that reads like a fiction, this is very good, The Ghost of Eden Park, set in the Gatsby Flapper era, and based on the famous bootlegger, George Remus. This I love. I got to review and this for the New York Journal of Books. Very great collection of essays. And I could keep giving to you all day. And then what I'm working on next, my agent has asked me not to reveal that this time around, but I will say again, it's going to be unique and set in Kentucky. I think that's all my books are set in Kentucky. And if you did like Bookwoman, I think you would like Godfrey in the Tobacco Field. And I have some other novels that's in Appalachia setting.
Okay, thank you very much. The questions will show in the chat, I think, in the recording, so you can take a look at what else other people were asking as well later on.
Oh, okay.
Back to you, Karen.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Kim Michele. This was just really special for you. And again, how much we really wish that we were doing this in person. So tomorrow at the same time, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, but 2 p.m. Central in Arkansas, we will be meeting again with Kim Michele Richardson for a 90-minute presentation where Kim Michele will be telling us more about the writing of the novel, showing us some images. We'll be listening to some music. It's going to be a lot of fun. In addition, one of Kim Michele's friends, Bren McLean, will be reading a passage from the novel for us. And there will also be some more time for question and answer tomorrow. So if we didn't get to some questions today, and you're signed up, hopefully there's still time to sign up for the Zoom tomorrow. Please go ahead and do it. We're looking forward to seeing you, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Kim Michele, is there anything you might want to say in closing?
No, I can't thank you, wonderful bookwoman and bookmen of Arkansas who helped bring this program together and do it so wonderfully and work with me. And I'm just so appreciative and honored to be feeling a part of Arkansas. I wish I could come down. It's not the same, but I'm really appreciative. Thank you, everyone. And thank you
Oh, I'm sorry.
And thank you to the patrons and the readers out there.
Yes, absolutely. We love to think about readers and continuing our reading journey, and it's just wonderful to connect with one book across the state of Arkansas. So we will see everybody tomorrow. We're looking forward to it, and we'll see Kim Michele tomorrow and our lovely dog, hopefully, as well. And thank you everyone for being patient with us as we're adjusting and transitioning to a virtual environment. This is the first time that we have done a program like this virtually. So everyone, thank you again, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care and stay safe.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.